Welcome to Invest Insights. I'm Abby Maloney. I'm joined today by Ralph Maurer, the head of school for the Oxbridge Academy. Ralph, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, let's dive in. You grew up around educators as both your parents were university professors. How do you think the educational landscape has evolved in terms of value perception over the years?
Yeah, and I've seen pretty much it all since then. I've been a university professor, I've run a K through 12 school, and I've run a high school, which now has added a middle school. And I've been a student kind of across everything, including a master's degree and PhD. And over the last 40 years, we've seen some big changes. I think in value perception, probably the biggest is it's become very difficult for the middle market. The high-end schools that offer probably the small classes, at least in the higher ed, kind of research faculty, great facilities, the big brands, and then at the K through 12 level, the higher tuition, lots of attention. These brands that we know, they're doing quite well. In fact, they're doing even better. And then kind of on the, what you'd call not the low end, but really the high value end, there's been some incredible innovation in things like distance education, charter schools, kind of low-cost privates, and choice schools is what you call it in Florida. Those have done extremely well. And all that's has sort of squeezed the middle. I see it at most with my high school students where when they think about college selections, there's a kind of list of universities, kind of all the brand names we know, where they're willing to leave the state of Florida if they get in or if they get the right scholarship package. Otherwise, they want to stay because there's some great universities here at a low cost that are just phenomenal. But that list of schools that they're willing to leave for is a lot smaller than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Ralph, this season of Invest Insights is all about creativity. Amid a period of accelerated innovation within the overall education sector, what have been some of the most creative ways Oxbridge Academy is furthering integrating technology into the students' educational experience?
It's a great question, because I think 6 months ago, a year ago, I would have had a different answer. I would have said, wait and see, because we were integrating a lot of technology for COVID there was a lot of uncertainty about what it was going to look like as we came out of at least the height of the pandemic. Now we're actually seeing what it's starting to look like, how we're putting that technology to use in ways other than mitigating the pandemic. And what we're seeing is that essentially we've poured broadcast technology across the school. So there are screens and cameras everywhere. And we developed enormous expertise in how to use it. So I've got someone in my communication staff, for instance, who's essentially a broadcast technologist. So we can do some amazing things. We can take speakers in the school and broadcast them anywhere. We can take speakers out of the school and broadcast them to the school anywhere in any configuration. We can take classrooms and do the same thing. We can take field trips who are overseas. And if they're gone for a week, we can take a day of what they're doing and broadcast it back to the school. It's just this sort of fluidity and seamlessness that you wouldn't normally force that kind of capital investment into AV technology on a school. But once you do, it opens up these just amazing possibilities. And who knew we were going to do that back when we were sort of stuck in our home offices during the Zoom.
Absolutely. We live in such a dynamic economy, one that's transforming on a daily basis. In preparing your students for success in this evolving economic landscape, what skill sets and values are you prioritizing to ensure growth among your students?
Well, we always try to be kind of mission vision centric. I think that's really important for institutions like ours. And our vision for our students is to meet the world boldly with agency, initiative, and kindness. And the agency and initiative piece as a set of values really go together. Agency being acknowledging that you have the ability to make a difference in the world. And then initiative pairs up with that is that you've got to go and do it. Essentially, you have the will to move. This is really important. I used to teach MBAs, and MBAs, when I would give them scenarios, cases essentially in high velocity environments with a lot of ambiguity, they were paralyzed. They would really freeze up. It was very difficult. And so it's a good example, I think, where we work with our students to not freeze up in those kinds of environments, to be able to have that calm ability to go ahead and make decisions with the best information possible. And that's what one has to do in in the world today. There's not necessarily going to be formulas. And then the next piece, value, kindness, to act, to give everyone sort of the benefit of the doubt, to give everyone an environment where they can do their best work. Sort of it actually goes along with that, because if we're going to approach the world calmly without those kinds of formulas, we need to be kind to each other to allow everyone to do that work. The last piece, which is sort of on the skills side, is that we are enormously focused on expertise as a school in our hiring, but also what we teach the students is we want them to learn how to be experts, how to go deep into a subject, how to acquire an enormous base of knowledge. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to come out of high school as experts. They probably won't even come out of undergraduate school as experts, but they know what it means, they know how to do it, and they have an appreciation for it. And they know that expertise begets expertise. So if you acquire expertise as a material scientist, for instance, then you might be able to go take that into, say, aerospace. And we have had students who go on to do those two things. I'm thinking of one in particular. So I think those are kind of the sets of things that probably we focus on most.
Absolutely. And on the one side are those skills and those core values that you just spoke about. And on the other hand are the teachers that teach it. And teachers are becoming increasingly hard to find. What are some of the creative ways that you're recruiting and retaining top talent at Oxbridge Academy?
Yeah, a really great question. Sometimes creativity is not sometimes doing something new is actually doing more of the same, in the sense that it's doubling down on your best practices. So what I've been doing is creating larger hiring committees, getting more people looking at more resumes, essentially more eyes on more candidates. And that has been very helpful, because I looked at talent management and talent acquisition as a task that was just going to need more horsepower, essentially. And that has been very helpful. I mean, there's some essential things, going to market earlier, making it a very attractive job, but those are things we've always done in many ways. We have a job here that I think is very attractive. We have attractive salaries. We have a place where we pay attention to the mental health of our teachers. I think all the things that make it a great place. But the market now just requires a lot of attention. It's a big job. And then I think the benefits that need to be offered to be competitive with inflation, I think that those pieces, you just can't skimp on them either. The secret sauce, so to speak, is, how are you going to do that and still be sustainable? I think for any school is going to be the real challenge.
As we round out our discussion today, how would you define creativity, and what does that look like for Oxbridge Academy and more broadly education moving forward?
I've thought about this for years, really. Definitions of creativity and innovation. This goes back to when I used to teach creativity and innovation. Creativity to me is essentially applied novelty. But the important part is that it's applied novelty into a market, that it's not just done in a vacuum. You can make polka dotted tuxedos, and that's novelty applied, but somebody in the end has got to buy it or evaluate it. And so when we're doing that kind of work, for instance, what that means is usually we're creating new programs or course offerings where we're layering them on top of the core education that we provide. And we're looking at what's going on out in the industry, out in higher education, out in other areas, and we look at trying to create exciting new programs that are attractive to students, that offer more educational value, that are going to be well received, that kind of, I would say, meet the market, but are not designed to the market. For instance, we have an artificial intelligence program that is layered on top of our computer science and math program. And again, that was observing what was happening in the world, what was happening in higher ed, and saying, oh, we can do that earlier. We're starting to do something right now that's really exciting, building an institute around commerce and markets, and very similar, seeing that our students were getting very interested during the pandemic in that. I think that that's really how creativity tends to work, at least in our world, and I think in education in general.
Thank you very much, Ralph. I appreciated our discussion today.
Well, thank you. This has been great.
That was Ralph Maurer, the head of school for the Oxbridge Academy. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel to hear more CEOs and thought leaders share their opinions and advice on today's business climate. Until next time, I'm Abby Malone, and this has been Invest Insights. Thanks for tuning in.